Good evening and welcome to this Audio Engineering Society event here at the University of Surrey. We're joined by two guests today who are representing essentially game audio in its forms of talent and of community building. And so we're going to be talking about these two topics, the idea of growing emerging talent and the idea of communities both online within the UK and further afield as well. So Lewis Thompson, Alyx Jones, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I thought we'd just start off by giving a bit of context to your backgrounds and just a quick introduction for each of you, if that works. So, Lewis, do you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. So my name's Lewis Thompson. I'm an audio lead at Soundcuts Limited by day. So we're an audio outsourcer. We've worked on hundreds of games over the years, kind of doing everything from sound design, music, compositions, implementation, everything. By night, a lot of people in the audio industry know me as a founder of Airwiggles, which is a social platform for people in audio. And myself and Alyx also organise lots of events in the audio scene as well. But I'll let you talk about that.
Oh, thanks. I'm Alyx, and I previously worked as a post-production lead in dialogue editing primarily, and also engineering. So I worked in a studio for voiceover production, but that was for about 5 years, and then I went on and started my own company, which does like everything as an indie games company, but everything we make is kind of from the audio perspective first, so it's quite nice to be able to take that experience rather than being the last thing in the chain. We're first now. And then of course with Lewis, do lots of stuff around Guildford and London, community work, mentoring, whatever we fancy.
Okay.
Absolutely, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And I just wanted to begin with a discussion on game audio training then. So what routes would you say are available for aspiring game audio designers to get ready for the industry?
Can we start?
Go on then.
All right. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now, so it was like 10 years ago that I graduated, but I think back then there wasn't any specific game audio courses that I can remember, and so generally the options were either proper engineering, so that were more like the maths and physics route, or maybe like music technology, which is the kind of thing that I see a lot of people moving from that kind of area into the games industry. Like a lot of people who are on my course now work in the games industry because you get that kind of mix of creativity and quite technical skills. But that's not to say that there's not a lot of value for learning on the job. So you could start as a runner in a studio and then work your way up, which I never realised until I actually worked in a studio, and I was like, oh, there's another part I could have taken there. Or maybe in many other different places, like not Western society, you would train and just learn as you did. And before people went to university so much, they just, learnt by doing it, right, and practicing. So
there's a huge sort of axes there, right? The idea of both the time, so if we look back at previous methods of getting in compared to now, but also then geography as well. So maybe a Western and Eastern perspective. And I mean, I've worked with developers from all over the world, so it varies massively, yeah. Lewis, what about you?
Yeah, so I actually am still young. So I've, so in my time, I have seen, game audio specific courses, which is, I did like a film media sound course. So I think they do exist now, which is lovely. And yeah, I'd say the routes it is either the more traditional side is going through education, getting a degree in exactly what you're trying to do. But I also think there's a very achievable route into the industry, which is just using non-university courses, like using free resources online, just doing every kind of game jam you can do, every kind of bit of work on the side and building up your show that way. I think for a lot of positions in game audio now, you don't necessarily need a degree as like an entry requirement. It helps, obviously. But yes, there's definitely alternatives in terms of just kind of doing all this extra stuff around the side in terms of networking and working on projects in your free time. So I'd say those are the two main routes into the industry right now.
I feel like I'm racking up dichotomies here. We talked about sort of 10, 15 years ago to now, East and Western perspectives, and perhaps then formal versus informal learning. So maybe to move on to that, the idea of formalised learning, what are your takes on this? Do you think there's still a space for this? Do you think that formal routes are still a viable option? And obviously you say there are online resources, but for somebody who's looking to get into game audio, where do they start when it comes to training?
Yeah, I think I think formal education is still very useful. I mean, I went to university as well, and now Alyx did too. Any kind of formal education schemes like this, like it's lovely to have guidance and a clear route of this is what you're going to be studying. You get to meet some amazing people, friends and colleagues for life potentially at university. It's really beneficial to go through the whole university system. And I think it's why so many people still do it. But I do think in the recent years, the game audio community has been putting a real effort in to make all these resources that are typically quite inaccessible if you don't go to university, available for free or for low prices online or in-person events. So I think if you're able to kind of like motivate yourself and keep yourself focused and with a set goal, you don't need the kind of the formal education. But obviously, I think I wouldn't have done it without it. I think it was really useful for me to kind of just sit down and focus on something for 2-3 years. And that really helped me.
It's interesting that you say that you might not need that type of training because actually there's so much going on informally. However, you did that type of training and it led to you having an appreciation for the informal stuff. Mm-hmm. Is it that 2 or 3 years of concentrated time? Is that a benefit? The idea of having a formal dedicated space?
I think so. And at my university, one of the first things they taught us was, and something I was going to lead on to later, but I'll get onto it now, which is the stuff they taught me at university in terms of, I did this course in game sound design. So much useful information was already useful. But crucially, they taught me straight away, like day one, you won't be able to do anything in this industry if you don't also spend time networking, get to know people in your area, getting to know people outside your university courses, etc., working on side projects, working on free projects, game jams, etc. Without all that stuff, I wouldn't be in audio now, despite the fact I had an education and a degree in it. And so I think I've lost my train of thought, Alex. What was your original question?
Training in all its many forms.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of things we can come back to there as well. The idea of having the social connections, the networking. Mm-hmm. Alyx, what about you? What are your thoughts about this?
I think for me, university was a time where I had that dedicated 3 years to only do that. Whereas if I was trying to use all the online resources and then also hold down a job to pay my rent and all of those things, because you can get student loans and scholarships or grants or whatever those different options are, I think sometimes for people from like slightly more underprivileged backgrounds, you just wouldn't be able to have that dedicated time to actually just learn. And I think not just the kind of course specs that you work through, but being around your peers, you never know where they're going to end up in your industry as well. And you learn a lot from collaborating with people, soft skills like group work, even though we all hate it to some extent because you get people who don't always contribute. But that can be like that in real life, right? And so you learn from that and you learn what kind of a person you are. Are you more of a leader or a collaborator? And then if you're in a university like this, you've got other courses around. And so if you're a little bit isolated at home just using online resources, you're kind of missing out on that really rich experience of like just being around other humans and living your life.
Yeah.
So that I think that's, although it's not the university course, that's what the real value of it was for me.
And we will say that networking is so important in this industry, and we're never going to get onto it later on as well. But also university is a form of networking because you work so closely with all your classmates, your teachers as well. At my company, I'm working with 2 colleagues who are also at my university, who I met through university, and they got in through me, basically. And so, yeah, it's really valuable for kind of building connections and kind of giving you a taste of what it's like in the actual real world, as opposed to if you're just doing everything on your own in your bedroom. It's quite difficult to kind of get into that scene without any kind of guidance from elsewhere.
It's almost the romantic idea of the musician or the DJ or the composer that writes things alone in their room. Is it Collier? Is it Jacob Collier? Got that name right? Is it called In My Room?
That's right.
Yeah, and this idea, the romanticised artist that sits and works alone and produces a work of genius. But actually, when we look at it, there are so many people involved in the ecosystem, especially something like game audio, where although we might not realise it at the time, you're right, those networks are being forged, those threads connecting everyone at that university. To what extent do you think that it's different at the time versus when you reflect on it later? Do you think you realised at the time that you were making those connections?
No, I was like very academic. I'm going to study really hard and get a first, and that was my only focus, like on the grades. And I think I didn't actually take advantage as much of that opportunity to just like hang around with people and like talk to them, because I was like, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to do all my work properly and like focused on that. And actually, I missed out on jamming with people and like collaborating with more musicians because I was more focused on what I wanted to achieve and not the people around me as much, not completely not. So I think it's easy to reflect and go, oh, well, you've got all of this out of it. But usually when you're in it, you're not probably thinking about it, you're just doing it.
I found when I went to university, I kind of made a mistake early on, which I think I kind of realised maybe about a year in my 2-year course, which was I came into the university course knowing that audio was going to be very difficult to break into. And we were told in our open day, like, only maybe 3 or 4 people in our 30-person class will probably work in the industry. And so you go into it kind of thinking everyone around you, as much as I love them all, are a bit of competition, and you want to make sure you're always striving to be better than everyone else, and you want to make sure you're leading a pack, etc. But I think actually, in hindsight, that was a really bad way to go about it, because it turns out that becoming close friends with everybody and working and bringing each other up together, we've all achieved so much more. And like so many of us have it offered each other some kind of work opportunities, whether it's a small client or project freelance here or there, or it's actually recommending each other for companies we work for. I think in my university class, I think we've had 4 or 5 people work at my company at various times. And I've seen, we still have, this is a little tangent, we have a little university group chat still, which we still occasionally post opportunities in. And one of my classmates from 10 years ago, a couple of years ago, posted a little link to a potential game which had looking for audio. And I was too busy, but a few people were interested and inquired. It turns out the game was Vampire Survivors. And so I don't think anyone actually worked on it, but like just by having these friends and connections and staying in touch with them, you could have worked on a BAFTA winning game or something. It's really is that silly how just knowing people and being friends with people can elevate you so much.
It's wonderful to see those connections actually play out over a longer period of time. The only issue is when all 5 of you turn up at the studio at the same time, of course, and it turns back into the playground days. But it's really, I guess it's the power of those networks which you made along the way. What's that saying about the real success with the friends we made along the way, right? That cheesy internet saying.
That's right. It's about the journey, not the destination. There you go.
Something like that. But it's the fact that actually, by mistake, you were paying attention to getting the first or 2, working hard and being at the front of the pack, as you put it, right? But actually, you end up, by doing that, you meet the people who are like that as well, and you start to lift each other up along the way. Fantastic. What about particular courses? Now, obviously we're saying here that there is more than just the content of the course, but are there specific types of courses? Are there specific bits of formal training that you would recommend?
I think when it comes to you will have more experience on this, but I'll go first and I'll get my inferior opinion out of the way. In terms of undergraduate courses, there's lots around England I've seen, which I think seem pretty good. You know, Surrey here is very, very good. I went to ACM just around the corner, which is also very good. I've seen great things about Leeds, etc. All those kind of undergraduate courses that offer, game audio specific courses, they seem to be pretty good at kind of going through stuff which is relevant. I've not seen many bad ones. So I think all undergraduate courses are probably going to be good enough. I think the key is, for me, is like the stuff that you learn in the course is fantastic, but it's going to be pretty pointless if you just do that and nothing else. I think you have to make sure to spend time working on your show or working on other projects, doing as much as you can outside of the course at the same time. And if you don't do that, I don't think any undergraduate course is going to be useful for you, to be honest. And I would say for me as well, I think I was quite liked my course because it was only 2 years, and I think typically there are 3 or 4 in the UK. But that was nice because it was I guess it was rushed, it was busy. I didn't have a kind of a summer break in between the 2 years. But at the end of the day, it means I had an extra year pretty much to just focus on my show reel at the end, as opposed to someone who did a 3-year course. So I would say, I'm not saying don't do a 3 or 4 year course, but for me, I found it useful just having the 2 years and focusing my energy on things outside of university. What about you?
Yeah, I think you can tell if a course is good or not from the graduates and the alumni and speaking to people about their experiences of it, the same as you'd research a company that you're going to work at. You talk to people who already work there. I think the location's probably quite important, like around London and Guildford especially. There's a lot of companies here in the UK, so that's quite valuable if you're going to do exactly what you say and be proactive and get out there and meet people. Like, we went to game jams a lot and met each other through that just because we were in the Guildford community, but other people in your course might not have done that and so didn't get that rich experience of like meeting experienced professionals who were already doing the job that you might have then wanted to go to. And I think in my first year I realised that networking was important, and so that was what I aimed to do. Of course, doing all my coursework, but then going, what events can I get to within reach and affordability, and just going to absolutely everything I could get to.
It's worth maybe listing out as well some of those hubs of activity. Guildford obviously has a lot going on, but I usually go through and say Leamington Spa, London, of course, Brighton, Oxford, Cambridge, and then heading further north, Sheffield, Nottingham, through to Edinburgh, some in Glasgow, disproportionate to the size though, Dundee, of course. Have I missed anything there?
I think Liverpool's a good one. And
yes,
Manchester,
Brighton there.
Bristol's got a little bit of one. I used to live there. There's some stuff going on, which is quite nice. And is this outside of the UK at all, this talk?
we can list off every single city.
Yeah, every
town.
city.
Let's go.
I just said, but if there's obviously lots of countries which have everything. Places like LA in the US are obviously massive hubs, and Vancouver as well. But if you're somewhere which isn't in a kind of a hub or a traditional kind of game dev scene, I think as well nowadays remote work is a lot more common, and so I wouldn't be too concerned about having to move somewhere where there's a hub if it's unreasonable for you. I think there's so much remote work now since COVID happened that I think you can basically get into the industry from anywhere if you find the right kind of jobs.
Absolutely. I find it really interesting, just to go back a bit, the idea of you're saying about 2 years, and that being that concentrated period of time. And we talked before about 2 or 3 years of having dedicated time. I did 4 for my undergrad, and it was full on, but it was a 4-year conservatoire degree. And so you're immersed in all of this stuff, but you think, what's the opportunity cost there? What would have happened? It's impossible to say, but if I had done 2 years and spent another 2 doing the things that I would have been doing, who knows what would have happened? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that your mileage may vary. You go on a 2-year course, you make the most of it, fantastic. You go on a 4-year course, you waste all of your time and just spend 4 years not really achieving very much, or vice versa. The 2 years might just scrape the surface, the 4 years might be a really intensive, fantastic block of time. But stopping from formal training for a second, what about informal training? What about this idea of self-directed learning, online learning? Maybe we could just dig into that a bit and start to unpack some of the other options.
Yeah, fantastic. I think there's so much out there at the moment. I think in the last kind of 5 years has already seen a huge growth in this kind of field for game audio specifically. Obviously, in terms of any kind of structured courses, there are alternatives to university courses. There's lots of online universities that offer kind of slightly reduced rates as opposed to an actual university. Things like ThinkSpace or School of Video Game Audio I've heard good things about. I've never gone through either, but from what I can tell, they're quite good. I know there's more as well, which I'm forgetting about right now. There's also, shout out to my friend Greg, who made the website Game Audio Learning, which is again, a completely structured kind of, this is everything you need to know about game audio, completely for free. So that's an amazing resource, especially one who wants to kind of just dip the toes in, feel out, kind of see what kind of stuff will be needed in game audio. But then apart from just those structured courses, there's so many free audio resources online. I think there's actually a website called Free Audio Resources. So many people, group together and bring these resources together, whether it's free Unreal projects you can enter audio into, the people who do challenges and contests all the time, game jams happen all the time. And I think if you can embed yourself within a community, whether it's in person or online, and you know about these things and you know what you need to achieve, which is ultimately make a good show reel, make a good CV, make a good website, and apply for jobs. I think if you can have that as your end goal, all the resources you need are out there. And it's just a case of knowing where to look. And I would say, not to advertise it too much, but start with Game Audio Learning, because they will just take you to links to every single relevant YouTube channel, every single academia, every single book that might be relevant. And it can just be your guide for free as opposed to a university or course or a paid course.
This is now the Game Audio Learning podcast.
Yes.
That's it. Let's just do it. It's interesting you mentioned ThinkSpace and School of Video Game Audio. So School of Video Game Audio is it Leonard Paul?
That's right.
Who runs that? Mm-hmm. And that, it's not informal, but it's not a degree awarding institution, right? So it has short courses. I think they're about 2 months long. Is that right? And you can do these in Wise or Fmod, Unity, Unreal. I think there's a Maximus P or Pure Data.
I did the Pure Data one, yeah.
Yeah, great program, but it's the idea of it's a paid-for course. I think there are bursaries available, but it's a formal stage of learning, but it's not degree awarding. So it's almost like someone can jump in either before university and afterwards, instead of, or even later in life. I know people that have gone and done courses with Leonard who are moving from a different type of sound, or they're moving from a different industry altogether. And then ThinkSpace. Am I right in thinking you do some work for ThinkSpace? Yeah,
I do the occasional tutoring and marking for them. I've done it for quite a long time now. I think maybe 8 years or something. But they are an official degree, so you can get a student loan to study. But the difference is that they're completely remote, so there's no campus as such. Mm-hmm. But I think the benefit of that is it generally tends to be either the assignments are marked or a lot of the webinars are from industry professionals, and so you don't have just your academics. It's a lot more industry focus, which I think I probably didn't get a lot of when I was at university. I really value my education, but I didn't have a huge amount of touch points with industry professionals provided by the university. I had to go out and find that myself. So if you have that brought to you, then that's quite cool.
I was discussing this with the crew here at Surrey before we started, and this idea that the distance between universities and industry is always something we're grappling with, because there's value on both sides. Industry is moving with a lot of proprietary tools and tech a lot of the time. Academia is teaching well and has structured learning and intended learning outcomes, but needs to connect. And so there's almost this two-way communication. So places like ThinkSpace are trying almost to insert themselves in the middle, where they're getting the best from industry and also the best from academia with the formal learning. So yeah, best of both worlds.
Yeah,
there you go. Second plug.
I think it is a good system, because I also do one-to-one tutoring with ThinkSpace. I don't know anything about the course material because I just haven't ever sat through and read it. But I know loads of people who do one-to-one sessions who are working full-time in industry, not even part-time, who just do it on like a lunch break here and then. And that's really useful. When I was at university, we had lots of tutors who were working part-time in the industry. Admittedly, there wasn't many in games when I was doing it, mainly kind of audio mixers, masters, etc. But that was still very beneficial. Just to have someone who's in it right now and can tell you a bit about the current state of the industry is nice. So maybe a thing to consider if you're applying at universities anywhere.
And really about connecting with other people again. It comes back to this idea when we talked about undergraduate cohorts and meeting your peers and growing up with your peers. Now we're talking about this idea of connecting with people who are established. It's still connection, but they're almost able to raise you up because they see potential there. And I think we could probably spend all night talking about the individual people who've helped us in our careers so far and what they did and how it made an impact. We'll not do that because we will be here all night and probably drop ourselves in some stories with those people as well. But it did make me want to move on to the idea of community and the people behind these networks and these relationships. And so when it comes to community, and especially the game audio community, what are the benefits there? Why is it beneficial to be involved in that community?
I mean, why is it not? Like, it's not just about the professional networking aspect. I generally have, like, some of my best ever friends generally tend to be, just you, in that community. But it's because you meet people who are like-minded and they're driven and they love the same things. They're really intelligent and interesting people to, like, get along with. So, like, why would they not enhance your life in every aspect? But in your career as well, they're going to always have perspectives and takes on things that you might not have thought of, or would never have gone down a certain route or tried something different in work or whatever. And so ultimately the community, there's no real like ulterior motive from anyone. I think they just want to be like mates and chat about things that are nerd out together and ultimately help each other like make the industry a better place.
Finding your people, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lewis, what about you?
I think I totally agree, obviously. I met some of my best friends through the audio community. I think there's two real main benefits to being involved in the game audio community, whether that's online or in person or both. I think the first one is purely from the kind of, getting a job side. It really helps to just know people in the industry. I think at my company, Soundcuts, I started when I was 3 of us and move on. I'm to 16 now. And I have to say, I think probably at least half of the people we've hired has been because someone in our company has known them and recommended them. And just so knowing people in your company, knowing people in your industry who you can recommend or recommend for other positions, etc., is so beneficial and I think makes all the difference when it comes to applying for jobs. But that's a very kind of like, analytical way of looking at it. I think also being in a game audio community, I don't know how to describe it, but you learn so much from people passively. Like there's so many things I've learned from other audio designers, whether it's hearing them talking about something in a pub or a meetup or seeing someone share something online, which is really beneficial. And I wouldn't have known to even look it up because I didn't know it was a thing. Someone would just drop some knowledge or information, which is really relevant to me, but I didn't know about it. I wouldn't have had any idea where to find this information. And I think actually in the last kind of like 3 or 4 years, I think I've gotten a lot better as a sound designer, which is my main job, just from seeing other people and other sound designers share things online, which I didn't know about. I found so many like cool plugins which I wouldn't have known existed. I've caught so many sales on plugins and sound packs which I wouldn't have seen. And just like seeing people's like workflows and seeing people share how their process, it really makes you so much better. And you also stay on top of the trends as well. When Disperser went crazy a few years ago, like if you weren't in the community, you wouldn't really have known what everyone was doing. And if you are, you get to use Disperser like everybody else was doing. There's another shout out for you.
I'm going to make a list of plugs here and start collecting some sort of royalties advertising checks once we wrap. But you mentioned the last 3 or 4 years, and obviously I think you said earlier that you're still young, so we'll go with that theme for now. Check back in 5 years' time, see how you feel about it. But what what progress have you seen over the last 3 or 4 years? Do you think this is shifting compared to, again, perhaps before your time, perhaps before my time, 10, 15 years ago, how that community operates?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry and the community around 10 years, I'd say, if you add it all up. But I'd say since coronavirus happened, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I think it all did shift a little bit. So speaking in person, obviously, there was loads of in-person events before COVID. COVID happened, they all went away. And then, to be fair, I think they're pretty much back as normal. But I think in that time, the online community has evolved quite a lot in that time. So like those first kind of 5 years, like maybe 5, 10 years ago, the entire audio scene was on Twitter, or X as it's now called, but it was on Twitter before Elon Musk bought it. Everyone was there. It was brilliant. It was really useful. I really miss it, how good it used to be. And since a certain someone purchased Twitter and everyone kind of split off and left, and everyone's kind of like gone to different platforms and spread, there's some very good resources and communities out there. There's lots of good Slack channels and Discord channels. LinkedIn's become quite good now for kind of seeing lots of industry updates and finding tips and tricks. Obviously, Airwiggles, which is my website, which is our attempt to bring it back together. But there's lots of communities out there. And I'd say in the last kind of couple of years, which is what I was talking about, I've been spending more effort trying to focus on online presence and be more involved in the online scene. And that's why I said in the last kind of 3 or 4 years, I've gotten better as sound designer by listening and looking at more people's stuff they're sharing. It's because since COVID happened, I think a lot of people focused on online networking more or so than they did before. And so, yes, going back to your point, I've gotten a bit distracted again. There's the online audio community now is different to what it was 10 years ago. It's a bit more splintered off and a bit kind of spread everywhere, but more people are using it and more people are sharing stuff online. And so I think it's a good place to be for kind of learning just passively, again, just being active and finding stuff that you might not have known about if you weren't online.
You did a great talk at Game SoundCon. Was that last year, November 2024, about online presence. And it was something that a lot of people in the room were thinking, I should probably get online. I should probably do something more with my Twitter, X, Blue Sky, LinkedIn profiles, whatever it is, but not really sure where to start. And I remember you saying, you just get started. The way to start is to just start posting stuff and learn by iterating and by doing.
You can't overthink it. You just have to post whatever comes to your mind and be friendly online. Just like people say with in-person events, you just have to go and you have to be nice and that's it. You don't have to go and wow everyone with your amazing sound design work. Just go and be present and be nice. And you'll make connections naturally if you keep doing it consistently. And as well, just by being online and checking in on these things, you just learn so much from other people because the game audio community are really generous with what they share.
For sure.
It's not like a bit gatekeepy like I think some other industries in audio are. Like I know film audio is a little bit more like people are a bit less ready to share what they're working on and share some secrets. But the game audio scene, and the Reaper community as well, everything is put online, loads of stuff for free. It's amazing, actually.
Let's do an anti-plug for the film industry.
Yeah.
We get some trouble.
Yes.
Alyx, to what extent does that mirror your experience online?
Yeah, I think maybe not just online, but 10 years ago, there was a little bit more gatekeeping, either around not having students come to industry professional events, or I was working for the Sound Architect as a journalist, and that was my kind of route in to be like, I'm a professional working here, even though I was still a student. And so I got into all those places. I think online, 10 years ago, there probably wasn't as much resources or collating of materials and where to go and who to talk to. So I think that's come a long, long way. And I know we put efforts into try and put reading lists together and whatever, Greg's work is amazing. That didn't exist before. And so you had to go out and really talk to people to get their opinions on what you should be doing. So I think now it's a lot more accessible than it was even just 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I do love a reading list. I'm going to plug my own website, actually. I've got a page called Game Audiobooks, and people probably find it when they're looking for audiobooks of novels and things, but also it actually gets a lot of traffic because all I do is list everything, and then it's all there, essentially. There's a piece about resource I want to move on to, but before we do that, in terms of events, and so actually getting involved in things online, I know you've got AirCon, the online conference as well, but that mixture of in-person and online types of events and resources. What are your takes on this? Do you think is there still value in doing things in person, or should people be largely focusing efforts online?
I think The main value is in person, because the difference online is it's so hard to network organically and just like bump into someone in the bar and have a chat about things. And I'm not saying that that takes away from the actual content of the talks, but like at Develop in Brighton, all of the business deals don't happen during the conference, they happen in the bar afterwards, right? Or when you're going to all the little side events and having ice cream on the beach. That's like the times where people get to know you, and ultimately people want to work with people who they know and like. It's not just like, here, listen to my show reel, oh yeah, that's really jazzy, but actually you're quite difficult to work with, or you're not helpful. Like if you make yourself present and people understand that you're a nice, friendly person and easy to work with, that's how you make those relationships, I think, in person. And equally, like online, aircon's great, but you can't just like queue up afterwards and talk to the speaker and go, I really enjoyed that bit, can I ask you a follow-up question? And, you know, here's my card, whatever. Then connect with them properly, because they go away and log off and they're gone.
That used to always be a great part of conferences as well, as you'd come back with a stack of business cards. Probably more 10 years ago, and people would all design them in different ways, and there were different trends. People would do the rounded corners, and there was one that I've still got from about 15 years ago, and he put different materials on the back of each card, and so mine had foam on. So it's about an inch thick, this business card, but there were ones with sandpaper and stainless steel and various things, and I've completely forgotten his name, what he does, but I've got this business card somewhere, and it made
remember something.
Really effective.
That's what I remember. I remember the blue foam on the back of this business card. I think he's a filmmaker, but it was the idea of turning, looking at things from different perspectives. He was a documentary filmmaker, and so to turn something around and look at it in a different light.
I've seen some very clever business cards. I saw one which was a USB stick at the same time with some Cheryl loaded onto it. Very clever. Quite expensive, but
such
very
an
clever.
IT nightmare now as well.
True.
Here, plug this in your PC, see what happens.
Firewall.
And I've seen someone who had a stack of business cards, which was basically could also be used to play the board game Skulls. And so just at a table after a conference, they just all playing this game with his business cards.
Nice,
so everyone take it home with them afterwards.
That's really smart.
Very clever.
Yeah.
So there's some creative ways around that. I actually disagree with what Alyx was saying massively.
Oh, you would.
No, not massively. I agree that in person I think is fantastic. I would say though, in terms of in-person online networking, I think they're just equally important now. I think they go hand in hand, and I think a lot of people are worried about or nervous about the idea of being active online. Loads of people I meet say, I don't really know where to start. It's too confusing. It's scary. I don't have time, etc. But I think, yes, you're right in that. The experience is different. I think they're not like comparable as a one-to-one basis, but they go really well hand in hand. And so, for example, if you're right in terms of like speaking to speakers after the talk or whatever, you can't really do that online unless you message them individually, and then it's a bit like
They've gone.
Yeah, you feel a little bit like I'm kind of bothering someone. But if you participate online and your face and name is always out there, appearing on everybody's phones, on their feeds all the time, and you just become a recognizable name as someone friendly there. That doesn't really do much in terms of kind of like making people exactly know who you are, but it does mean when you go to any kind of in-person events, people already know who you are, and they'll come up to you and say, I recognize you from this website, or I know you from this, or you're working on this thing, aren't you? And it's so useful for networking. Especially if you're nervous about networking in person, having an online presence as well, and also the ability to chase up with people afterwards as well. Like if you meet someone at a networking event and you want to follow up with something they were talking about, whether it's a project they were working on or something, having an existing online presence and being able to follow them or check in with them afterwards is really useful. And so, yes, I think they're equally as good as each other, and I think they're both very good now, especially since COVID happened. I think that's really made online networking a lot more viable, especially now there's so much remote working opportunities right now. We're obviously quite spoiled being in the centre of the UK, in like this lovely Guildford Games hub with London right next to us as well. There's lots of clients nearby. But for those people who are maybe spread around Europe in kind of smaller game dev cities, a lot of these studios do hire fully remote workers. And I've known loads of people who have been networking purely online because they live in kind of smaller cities around Europe, who have managed to find work at a studio in another country, for example, who are just working entirely remotely, hiring entirely remotely. No in-person networking events were required to go to, but just by being active online, knowing people, getting recommendations from people online where a job's coming up, have found work that way. So I think it's different, but I think they're both very valuable.
You're right that converts into that online, the online to the physical space as well. I mean, you've introduced me to people from Helsinki and Barcelona and various things at physical conferences where you've built up a relationship online, and then it almost materializes in real life, in meet space. And so the types of experiences are different, but it wouldn't exist, or one wouldn't exist without the other now. And I'm really coming round to the online thing. I think part of Aircon has done that, or Aircon has partly done that, rather, the fact that there's been such value online, because I'm not a Luddite by any means, but I stay away from social media largely. But I'm seeing the value now. And then in terms of physical conferences, yes, the pandemic shook everything up, but there is still that value. And as Alyx points out, this idea of the deals or the social contacts are made in the bar. And that's maybe a whole other topic about alcohol at events and things.
Well, I don't drink, I just hang out, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people have tried to address that, the fact that a lot of things are in bars, so things are in cafes or beach meets and things that develop.
For sure.
But it is that, again, that physical reality of meeting people and just being able to chat immediately and bring other people into it without it being a formalised online space. When it comes to physical events and meetups, akin to when we listed out some university courses, are there any particular conferences that you think are worth people attending?
I think Develop in Brighton is my absolute favourite that I go to every year. I think I've gone for like 8 years, maybe. No, not yours.
No, so I was going to say, just really quickly, in case we forgot to mention it, with something like Develop, yes, I love it. As you say, you continue, it's amazing. But also, for anyone watching who maybe hasn't been before, don't get dissuaded by high ticket prices, because myself and you and I think almost everyone we know just goes for the free expo pass, and we just go to network and meet people, and we don't do any of the talks. It's very expensive. They're great talks. When I have been, they're really good. But it's not a case of you have to buy the full tickets to get value out of it. I just wanted to say that.
No, that's the most awesome thing about it, because a lot of conferences are really inaccessible. Like GDC is so expensive, and I think people do the same. They just hang around in the external area rather than going into the actual conference. But like, at least with Develop, you can book meetings on the free pass. You can go to the expo and still hang around with people. And if you do buy a full pass, you have access to all of the talks online afterwards. So if you don't make it to every single thing, you can still catch up on that for a year, which is pretty cool that they have that continual resource of talks to watch.
It's where the parties take place as well, right? The late night parties don't take place in the expo hall. They take place in the studios nearby or in the bars and the clubs and things. And there's also the idea, I mean, we've got Develop. We've also got Develop North's becoming a thing now. Is that up in Liverpool? Have I got that right?
So it was last year, yeah.
I should really remember all those things. We have your Air Wiggles meetups.
Yes.
Take place.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, good.
Is there anything else across the UK that you would recommend to people who are looking to get
Yes,
involved?
I think something which I think is probably the most frequent meetup you can do for game audio is many of these big audio hubs and game dev hubs have a game audio meetup in their city. Probably some often as once a month, normally kind of once every season, I suppose. So me and Alyx together run Guildford Game Audio, which is just a meet-up in a pub nearby. It's lovely. It's very friendly. You were saying earlier about, maybe 10 years ago, it used to be a bit gatekeepy in terms of people didn't invite students, or maybe the invite links was maybe hidden away.
You had to be like a professional on a certain mailing list to be able to get access to it, and then you'd had to have credits to be on that mailing list. Right?
Yeah, and it took a long time to get on the mailing. Even when you had the credits, it took a good year or so to get on it. So nowadays that isn't, well, in the UK, of all the meetups I'm aware of, I don't think that's the case of any of them. I think they're all very accessible. And actually, to be honest, most meetups I can think of in the UK were actually started by students because they wanted to do something and bring something to their city, which I actually think is a really clever way of networking, is to start an event or a meetup in your city. In fact, that's actually what I did.
We literally became the centre of the community because we were like, oh, this isn't quite how I foresee that going. We want it to be more accessible and inclusive. So.
But yes, I know that, Bristol and Liverpool and Edinburgh are all just friends of mine who were starting in the industry, started a meetup, and now they're running monthly meetups in their city and having people from local studios come down. I'm getting distracted, but yes, basically these kind of smaller meetups in the UK at least are very accessible and very friendly. So even if you are a student, as long as you go and you're not pestering people handing out CVs and stuff, if you're just going to generally meet people and just chat about something we're all passionate about, you'll have a great time. And people are generally really nice. There's maybe a couple bad eggs, but in general, you'll probably have a good time. I have heard of a few, again, for any worldwide listeners, a few cities where maybe it is still a little bit a bit more gatekeepy, a bit more hidden away. But I think in general, just have a look to see what's nearby. There's a great, a game audio groups map online. I forget what it's called, but I know you can find it on Air Wiggles. There's a little local community space.
Like a calendar thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can find events nearby. There's, again, almost every city and every kind of big game dev hub will have an audio meetup happening. And if not an audio meetup, an actual game dev meetup, which also happens in almost every city. Guildford has one, London has one. so you can meet actual developers as well. Yeah.
I think that's the thing of not limiting yourself to only audio people, because sometimes they will hire you if they get too busy, but a lot of the time they're not the people that you're going to directly work with as clients. You need to spread out and be in the more general thing and meet all the people doing jobs that you have no idea. That's why game jams are really cool.
Yeah.
We can like sit next to an artist in a program and be like, oh, what are you doing? Can you teach me that? And then you start doing everyone's jobs for like the weekend, which is a great way to learn when you're not in a studio, seeing how that operates. You get a really like fast-tracked view of how different disciplines work together as a team, and then you can bring that back to your work even if you are remote, because you know what other people are roughly doing behind the screens.
I think it does depend though. I think if you're, say, an aspiring composer, the jobs are going to likely be freelance, in which case, yes, 100% you're going to be hired by game creators or producers or directors, etc. You're probably not going to be hired by anyone in a sound team. Same for voice actors, same for, maybe for kind of more typically freelance positions. Whereas I think if you're aspiring to be something like an in-house sound designer or a technical sound designer, the jobs and the junior positions are typically in a studio. They're going to be sorted out and hired by an audio team. And so I think if you're looking for a sound design position, I'd actually say, I think people think that networking audio people is counterintuitive, but I think it's actually more likely you'll be hired by an audio person than a non-audio person if you're looking for like a sound design position. But it depends what you're going for, and depends how likely that job is to be freelance, basically, and who will be hiring you.
I'm starting to sound like a stuck record, but it comes back to people again. All of this, the idea of community building or training, finding your people, whether it's to learn from them or to connect with them, or eventually to look at employment or to raise others up. And we're not going to dig into mentoring in a big sense today, but the idea of actually, we've got to the point now where, yes, we're still learning from others, but we're also able to lift others up as well, and that's a really wonderful thing to see. When it comes to resources, I just want to move on and sort of start to wrap things up with resources, and almost an offering to anyone who's watching this now or later, who's looking for, whether it's books or it could be learning materials, but also sound libraries and any of the resources they need to get started. Where do you recommend people look?
You've got most of the websites, right?
Okay, yeah, I can list them off. So yes, there's so many great resources out there, as I said, lots for free and lots for not much money. There's loads of great books, for instance. Starting from top down, I know that there's a website by Prezi Hines called Free Audio Resources. I mentioned it earlier, which is a great just first link to lots of different places. So that's a great first place to look. And then the stuff that myself and Greg Lester are doing with Alyx and Game Audio Learning, we have a few sections on our websites where you can find free sound effects or find mentors or find reading materials, find communities, etc. So I think those kind of three websites, which is, I'll repeat it again, Free Audio Resources by Prezi Hines, Game Audio Learning by Greg Lester, and Airwiggles by myself and Greg Lester, I think will have lots of initial places to go, which will spread you far and wide through the internet to find all these great resources. In terms of specifics, though, books, I think as a composer, or as when I was starting, I wanted to be a composer. The book by Winifred Phillips, I want to say A Composer's Guide to Game Music,
was the one, I think.
That sounds pretty accurate.
Was very useful for me. Yeah, that I really like that. Recently, I was very impressed by Alyx Previty's book on game audio mixing, maybe a bit more specific and maybe a bit more kind of more advanced for a beginner, but still very interesting, very relevant, very useful, and something which hasn't really been covered very much before, in my opinion. And also Greg Lester, who I keep talking about, made a book recently, which is very much like a kind of how to kind of frame your mindset for finding game audio work. I actually forget exactly what it's called. It's like a pocket mentor's guide to game audio,
that's
I believe.
Yeah, TLC Press.
There we go, that's the one. And yeah, that's a lovely, not so much like, this is all the technical stuff you've got to be doing, but just an overview of how you should frame your journey into audio and some places to look and kind of what some common pitfalls are, etc.
Alyx's mixing book took off online. I remember
it really
my
did.
LinkedIn feed with game audio designers. There was pictures of this on the beach and on planes and on various things. It's holiday reading. And then Winifred's book's great. I was speaking to Winifred about this about 6 months ago, and she said she took a year off from writing. I don't know how true it is because she's quite industrious, but she took a year off from writing properly just to focus on the book. So she obviously had all of this success already, and I think she just went on to win a Grammy recently. Is that right?
As you do.
As you do, casual Grammy there. But she ended up wanting to really dedicate everything into this book and to make sure it was crystallizing all of her thoughts at the time, rather than being a side hustle, as the kids would say these days, right? And so it's great to see people who've got all of this knowledge from industry, who've codified it into something which can then be shared for... that book's going to be relevant potentially for decades. Yes, the technologies will change, but the way the philosophies of writing will likely stay the same.
There's other books as well, and I think about it. Like, I generally can't think of any books which I wouldn't recommend to everybody. I've not read all of them, but I know Rob Bridget has some great ones. Alyx has some great books as well. I think, like, just have a look at what books are available. Again, you can find a list of them pretty easily online, and then just pick up what you think is relevant to you. And I think you'll probably enjoy it because they're all written by industry professionals who work full time. And he said maybe taking some time off, or been writing it in the morning before work or something. But yeah, they're all good.
Some of them are dated, but even the dated ones, things like, is it George Sanger, George the Fat Man Sanger he goes by? He wrote a book in about 2002, 2003. It's called The Fat Man's Guide to Game Audio.
I haven't read that one.
I haven't even heard of that.
No,
He's
I feel
a real,
like I remember
he's a
that.
fantastic
I was
character.
5, to be fair, when it came out.
But the technologies are obviously out of date, and some of the methods are of the time. But actually, what it is, it's a snapshot into the industry as it was then. And so some of the ones I've got some books at home which are all about getting hired in game audio, but it's from 1998. And there was one about making the sound design for PowerPoint presentations. It was thinking about, well, actually, have you considered doing PowerPoint presentation sound design for businesses because they might want sound effects in their presentations? And that was seen as an actual form of employment. Now, that's not the case now, but actually it's something about being industrious and thinking, what are the applications for my craft that is non-linear, and how can I apply that to maybe more than just games? Some of the technologies obviously we use in games can then be applied to interactive installations or theatre pieces. I know some people who've used Wise in surround sound installations in theatre work before. So maybe it's about trying to, broaden perspectives through going through the archives, so to speak.
Yeah, I think when I was young as well, I was very much like, I'm going to be a game music composer and that's it. And that was the path that I followed, and was really like, got rid of anything that wasn't that. And then I found so much stuff that I loved down that path. And when I let go of that really rigid way of thinking, I actually was a lot happier, because all of those things relate to the things that I learned. They just weren't under this label of specifically a composer or whatever.
Yeah, me too. I was determined not to become a sound designer. Look at me now. I love it.
The final thing I want to cover in resources is mentoring. Now, I said we wouldn't go into the depths of mentoring and what it means and what it doesn't mean, but are there any particular resources where people can find mentors, or where they can find like-minded people to lift them up in a mentor-mentee capacity?
I think Limit Break's the best in the UK, but that's specifically for underrepresented groups of people, and it runs for 6 months at a time. I did have mentoring under the audio mentoring project years and years ago, but I'm not sure that they still actually run anymore. I think they're just like too busy to like do it properly. But there's nothing stopping you from approaching someone who you respect in the industry and asking if they'd be willing to just do a couple of calls with you over a few months to, come with questions prepared, know what you want to get out of it. Don't just be like, sit there and expect them to deliver something for you, but ask them like really meaningful questions and make the most out of their time. And I think those connections are really valuable, and if people are really generous with their time, generally they will give you that if you ask for it, right?
I'll give you a call once we wrap up.
Not to sound like a broken record, but I do know that Greg Les has also just really revealed a new mentorship tab on Game Audio Learning. He's kind of made like a portal where mentors can kind of submit a profile, and mentees can reach out to those who have said they're willing to mentor people, just to kind of send an email and see what they can do. Which again, that's all free, so I would recommend it. I think mentoring wasn't really a thing when we were starting out. I never had a mentor.
Yeah, I had the audio mentoring project. It must have been a long time ago now.
Oh, as a mentee, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But I've never had a mentor. But I kind of wish I had one, because it seems great. And I think you were saying before about the idea of having some kind of external structure and guidance and kind of a framework to work towards, and having a mentor, even if it's just like a limit break for 6 months, maybe 6 calls once a month, that can be really good to just kind of give you something to aim for. And I think it's quite difficult to know exactly what you should be working on. I think having a mentor in the industry is really helpful. And yeah, as Alyx said, you can just reach out to anyone who seems friendly and nice, and as long as you're polite, I think they'll probably be willing to help you. I guess one tip for mentoring, not to take too long, but would be a lot of mentors I know are very busy people. They're working full time, but they still like giving back to the community and helping people. I'd say definitely reach out to them and make use of all their time and willing to give you, but like try to be the one initiating, the calls, be the one asking the questions, be the one wanting to know what you want to get out of it. Don't approach it like you're a teacher going to teach me stuff, because they're going to forget to kind of like reach out to you, they're going to maybe, get swept up on other things. But if you can, as hard as it is to be kind of a bit pesky, a bit annoying, if you can be the one who initiates every conversation, books the dates in for each call, and comes up with a rough idea of what you want to cover, makes it so much easier for everybody, and it'll be more beneficial for you as well.
It's the 3 Ps principle, isn't it? Polite, persistent, and professional.
Very good.
There's maybe proactive in there as a 4th.
4 Ps, yeah.
Trying to be, you can call it needy, but you can call it actually being, just putting energy into that relationship and not expecting everything to land on your lap, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to conclude then, if someone has been watching this here or later in the recording and they're still unsure of how to get started, what should they do? What's your advice there?
I think take like a view of where you're at the moment, because that's going to be different for everyone, and what skills that you most need to work on. Because if you're trying to be a sound designer but you've not actually done like some Foley recording or learnt how to process those sounds, then you've got to learn that from somewhere, whether it's online or at a university. Or if you're coming from a different industry, maybe you've got all those skills but you don't have that network, and so it's just like having like a well-rounded view of the areas that you're kind of like strong and weak in, and then seeing those areas that you're lacking in, who you can then approach to help you. And people will give advice, and so it's quite easy to then go, okay, these are the steps I need to take, set some goals, and then start working down that path, right?
Lewis, what about you?
I'd say the most important thing, if you're just like really about to completely start your journey from scratch, just find some way to speak to people. It doesn't have to be, it can be at university, it could be a lecturer, it could be a mentor, it could be people at a networking event, it could be people online. But just find someone or some people, ideally many different sources giving you the same idea of just people who are in the industry, or at least more in the industry than you are, just to say like, oh, this is what I'm doing, this is what you should probably look at next. And that would just be so much more useful than trying to work it out by yourself. There's obviously so much great resources on there. I would recommend going through all the ones we've gone through, especially the free ones. It's just a way to get started and get a good overview. But let's say, ultimately, just like you don't really know what your level is, you don't really know what you don't know. Speak to people and find out from them what they think you should be doing first. People will be happy to help you. And then from there, you can take that advice and begin.
I think for people who are like super drifting and not sure, it might be thinking about what excites you and what's passionate, like where do you really enjoy working, and then where do you apply that? Because if you're doing something you're not really having fun, you don't want to do that for the next 20 years, right?
Absolutely agree, and the rest. Now, I want to give an opportunity for any questions, anything that's from the room, anything from online as well. Is there anything from the room here? Any questions related to what we've talked about? Could be something completely random.
I'd just like to ask the question, with the big uptake of AI being a part of everyone's lives, of those 4 main categories that we were discussing earlier, do you have any positive or negative views on how AI could disrupt the resources available, communities and people engaging in them, and the training that people feel that they need to undertake?
I don't know how much, because a lot of this is very people-centric, I don't know how much AI can really be applicable to the community, because ultimately the only thing there is having a conversation with someone who's not real, like ChatGPT, but it's not at a place where you can use that to get actual industry advice, because where it's drawing information from is generally just like the internet, not people, so it's not really the industry advice. So I don't really know.
Yeah, I feel like it's very difficult to say right now. It's kind of looming. There's definitely going to be lots of big technological updates in the future when it comes to software you need to learn, different sample libraries and how they're made and generated, how sounds are used and how the rights are sorted. Like, so much is going to change in the next kind of 10 years, and I don't really know how it's going to change. So I'm sure that, I think what we've covered today is kind of still going to be correct in terms of just the aspect of where to find resources, who to speak to, etc. But like in terms of the actual technical stuff you need to know, I imagine it's going to change quite drastically in the next 10, 20 years. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen with it. I think there are ways you can probably use AI in your kind of personal development in a way that, could help you. Like even just using, if you struggle like doing social media posts, using AI to just kind of guide you or things to talk about or just to edit your posts, etc. It's like I've done it. I'll admit, like I don't feel good about it, but like it has helped me when I felt really like I'm struggling to kind of come up with stuff. In terms of the actual audio stuff, I don't know. It's really hard to say. Yeah.
I wouldn't use it for social media, because yourself as a brand, you're taking
Yeah.
away from that
So
by...
I've never like written a post with AI, but it's like, because I'm always trying to come up with like events ideas, things to post online, and I have to say like, give me some ideas of like contests I could run. Just give me something interesting I could ask a question about something. It's probably a bit more unique for me because I'm kind of like running a community and I'm trying to keep it on constantly with questions and topics of conversation.
Yeah.
That's been useful. But yes, I wouldn't have it so AI be my social media manager, do everything for me, because people will see through it straight away.
Lewis chat.
Yeah.
That's an AI model I do want to see, everything on the side.
Make it sound more like me.
I can't think of anything more horrendous.
Maybe with the release of
It's just
ChatGPT
all
5, I can just train it on transcripts of our conversations.
No one wants that.
It would descend into completely nonsensical stuff.
On the theme of descending into nonsensical stuff, I'm going to wrap things up now. I've had a look at the chat online. I think we've put everyone into stunned silence, the amount of things that have been covered. So thank you for all of your contributions, and indeed questions from the audience as well. I also wanted to thank the University of Surrey for hosting us, the Audio Engineering Society for basically hosting this event and promoting this event out, and indeed to Alyx Jones and to Lewis Thompson for being involved. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you at another event like this soon.
And thank you to Alexander for hosting as well. Did a great job.
You're too kind. Thanks all. Take care.
Thanks everyone.